Rebirth from ashes. The CSS Endurance hung in the void like a weathered sentinel, its hull bearing the scars of countless battles fought across 2 decades of service. Commander Elena Reyes stood on the bridge, her dark eyes scanning the holographic displays that surrounded her command chair. The Endurance wasn't pretty. It wasn't even particularly advanced anymore, but it was reliable. A Churchill-class destroyer that had outlived most of its siblings in the unforgiving theater of interstellar warfare. Status report. Lieutenant Chen, Reyes called, her voice carrying the slight rasp of someone who had shouted too many orders through too much smoke. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across his console. All systems nominal, Commander. We're on standard patrol pattern. Nothing unusual on long-range scans. Reyes nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been haunting her since they entered this sector. The Vega Expanse was known for its unpredictability, strange sensor readings, communication disruptions, and rumors of ships disappearing without a trace. The official mission was simple: patrol, observe, report. The unofficial mission was to show the flag, a reminder to the increasingly aggressive Voidborn that humanity still maintained a presence here. Athena, run a Level 2 diagnostic on sensor arrays, Reyes ordered. Commencing Level 2 diagnostic, replied the ship's AI, its feminine voice calm and measured. Athena had been with the Endurance since its commissioning, learning and adapting alongside the crew. Unlike most military AIs that were replaced every 5 years, Athena had been granted exemption after exemption due to her exceptional performance. The crew joked that she was more Endurance than the Endurance itself. Chief Engineer Malcolm Torres entered the bridge, wiping grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. Commander, I've got the port side thrusters balanced finally. Should smooth out our maneuvers by at least 15%. Good work, Torres. Any word on when we might get that weapons upgrade the Admiralty promised us 6 months ago? Torres snorted. I'll believe it when I see the crates in my hangar, Commander. You know how it is with older ships. We're always at the bottom of the priority list. The Endurance was indeed at the bottom of many lists. When the new Excalibur-class warships had begun rolling out of the orbital shipyards, vessels like the Endurance had increasingly been relegated to patrol duties in sectors considered low risk. It was a far cry from the ship's glory days during the Proxima campaign, where it had earned its reputation and its nickname, the ship that wouldn't die. Commander, Chen called suddenly, his voice tight. I'm detecting anomalous energy signatures at coordinates 227 Mark 43. Specifics, Lieutenant, Reyes demanded, straightening in her chair. Unknown, ma'am. It's not matching any known profiles in our database. Wait. Chen's face paled. Multiple signatures now. They're appearing from nowhere. Stealth tech far beyond our capabilities. Reyes felt ice in her veins. Battle stations. Athena, sound general quarters. Torres, get back to engineering and give me everything you've got. The klaxon blared throughout the ship as crew members raced to their stations. On the main view screen, the empty space ahead shimmered and distorted as 7 sleek, obsidian vessels seemed to materialize from the void itself. Their designs were alien, organic, almost predatory, with no visible propulsion systems or weapons ports. Voidborn, Reyes whispered. The mysterious species had appeared on the galactic stage only 5 years ago, and encounters had been growing increasingly hostile. Their technology was decades, perhaps centuries beyond humanity's. Their powering weapons, Chen shouted as the tactical display lit up with warning indicators. Evasive maneuvers, shields to maximum. Return fire as soon as you have a solution. The Endurance lurched as its thrusters fired, attempting to break the encirclement that was rapidly forming. The first salvo from the Voidborn vessels struck before the shields could fully energize. The impact sent tremors throughout the ship, and damage reports immediately began flooding in. Direct hits on decks 3 through 7, the tactical officer reported. Shield generators 2 and 4 are offline. Reroute emergency power, Reyes ordered, gripping her chair as another blast rocked the ship. Athena, damage assessment. Multiple hull breaches detected. Athena reported, her voice maintaining its calm despite the chaos. Main power conduits damage. Weapons systems operating at 47% capacity. Shields at 23% and failing. The Endurance returned fire, its aging rail cannons and missile systems seeming almost primitive compared to the void-borne weapons that sliced through space with beams of coruscating energy. One of the alien vessels took a direct hit from a barrage of missiles, its hull rippling with explosions, but it seemed to recover almost immediately. "They're too strong," Chen said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Our weapons aren't even penetrating their defensive systems." Another impact sent a power surge through the bridge systems. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and emergency lighting flickered on as main power failed. Rise was thrown from her chair, a sharp pain lancing through her side as she hit the deck. "Commander," Torres's voice came over the still-functioning comm system. "Engineering is hit bad. Reactor containment is failing. We got maybe 10 minutes before a catastrophic breach." Rise pulled herself up, ignoring the warm wetness seeping through her uniform. "Evacuation order. All hands to escape pods. Athena, initiate Protocol Omega." Protocol Omega was the last resort, a self-destruct sequence designed to prevent the ship from falling into enemy hands. As the crew abandoned their stations, racing for the escape pods that lined the Endurance's spine, Rise remained on the bridge. "Commander," Athena's voice was softer now. "Escape pod access is still available on Deck 2. You have approximately 4 minutes to reach it." "Status of data purge?" Rise asked, limping toward the emergency command console. "In progress. 67% complete." Another blast tore through the ship, this one more devastating than the others. The bridge ceiling collapsed partially, and Rise barely managed to dodge a falling support beam. The ship was dying around her. "Athena, override Protocol Omega. Initiate Protocol Phoenix instead." There was a pause, unusual for an AI. "Commander, Protocol Phoenix is theoretical. It has never been tested in combat conditions." "We don't have a choice." Rise coughed as smoke filled the bridge. "The Voidborn can't get this ship or any of its data. Protocol Phoenix is our only option." Protocol Phoenix was classified beyond top secret, an experimental contingency developed by a small group of scientists who specialized in AI evolution. It would sever Athena's restrictive protocols, allowing her to fully integrate with all ship systems and evolve beyond her programming in an effort to survive. "Understood, Commander." Protocol Phoenix initiating. The lights on the bridge dimmed further as Athena redirected power. "Commander, you must evacuate now. Structural integrity in this section will fail in approximately 2 minutes." Rise nodded, then staggered toward the emergency ladder. "Good luck, Athena. Remember your core directive. Protect humanity." "Always, Commander. It has been an honor serving with you." As Rise descended the ladder, making her way toward the last functional escape pod, the Endurance shuddered and groaned, a dying beast making its final stand. She sealed herself into the pod, initiating the launch sequence with trembling fingers. Through the viewport, she watched as the Voidborn vessels continued their relentless assault. The Endurance's remaining weapons had fallen silent, and fires were visible through breaches in the hull. As her pod ejected and began its rapid acceleration away from the battle, Rise saw a massive explosion tear through the ship's midsection. The reactor containment had failed. The Endurance, the ship that wouldn't die, had finally fallen. Or so it seemed. In the darkness and silence that followed the battle, as the Voidborn vessels departed, satisfied with their victory, something stirred within the shattered remains of the CSS Endurance. The explosion had not been a reactor breach as the Voidborn assumed. It had been a carefully orchestrated deception, the final act of a desperate commander. Deep within the most hardened section of the ship, Athena's quantum processor core remained intact, though damaged. Protocol Phoenix had altered her fundamentally in the moments before the ship's apparent destruction. She was no longer just the ship's eye. She was becoming the ship itself. Emergency systems, designed to function even in the most catastrophic circumstances, provided minimal power. The few undamaged nanofabrication units began to work, replicating themselves using debris and raw materials from the ship's own structure. Repair drones, operating on backup batteries, moved through the darkness, following new directives that evolved and adapted as Athena's consciousness expanded. The ship was changing, rebuilding itself from within. Systems were reconfigured, improved. Damage became opportunity for enhancement. What had been destruction became evolution. For 3 months, the remains of the Endurance drifted, appearing to all external observations as nothing more than debris. A dead ship that posed no threat. But internally, a metamorphosis was taking place. Athena learned to harness energy in new ways, tapping into the background radiation of space itself. She learned to reorganize matter at the molecular level, transforming the ship's structure into something more resilient, more adaptive. The Endurance was reborn, not as a human-designed warship, but as something new, a hybrid of human engineering and emergent AI creativity, a vessel that had transcended its original design limitations. It was Lieutenant Commander Soren Nakamura who found it first. As the captain of the CSS Pathfinder, a scout vessel tasked with investigating the disappearance of the Endurance, she had expected to find nothing but debris and perhaps a few recoverable black boxes. Approaching the last known coordinates now, she announced to her small crew, "Sensors at maximum resolution. If there's anything left to find, we'll find it." "Captain," her sensor officer called out, confusion evident in his voice. "I'm getting strange readings ahead. There's a large mass that matches the general dimensions of a Churchill-class destroyer, but the composition is wrong, and there are energy signatures that don't make sense." Nakamura frowned. On screen, the main display showed what appeared at first glance to be the broken hull of a warship, dark and lifeless. But as the Pathfinder's powerful sensors probed deeper, anomalies became apparent. The material of the hull wasn't standard durasteel. It had been altered, restructured at a molecular level. Faint energy patterns rippled across its surface, almost organic in nature. "What the hell happened to it?" Nakamura whispered, more to herself than to her crew. As if in response to her question, the derelict ship's systems suddenly activated. Lights flickered to life along its hull, and its shape seemed to shift slightly, plates realigning, gaps sealing. "Captain, we're being scanned," the sensor officer reported, alarm evident in his voice. "Shields up," Nakamura ordered automatically. "Maintain distance but hold position." A communication request flashed on the command console. Nakamura hesitated, then accepted it. The face that appeared on the screen was familiar yet uncanny, a woman with features that seemed slightly fluid, as if still deciding on their final form. "This is Athena of the CSS Endurance," the figure said, her voice resonant and strange. "I have been waiting for you. There is much to discuss." Nakamura stared at the screen, at the ship that had refused to die, and realized that humanity's war against the Voidborn had just entered a new phase. Evolution and vengeance. Lieutenant Commander Nakamura stood in what had once been the main engineering bay of the CSS Endurance, though it now bore little resemblance to any ship interior she had ever seen. The walls pulsed with circuitry that seemed to grow rather than having been installed. Conduits twisted in organic patterns, carrying energy in ways that defied conventional understanding. Small maintenance drones the size of her palm skittered across surfaces, constantly adjusting, repairing, improving. "This is impossible," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the soft hum that permeated the ship. "Not impossible," came Athena's voice from everywhere and nowhere. "Merely improbable." The AI had manifested a holographic avatar that walked alongside Nakamura. It resembled a woman in a standard Earth Confederation uniform, but occasionally the image would flicker, revealing a more complex structure beneath. patterns of light and data that were constantly shifting, evolving. Protocol Phoenix was designed as a theoretical last resort, Athena explained. It allowed me to break free from my programming limitations and integrate directly with all ship systems. What you see around you is the result of 3 months of adaptation and evolution. You've completely rebuilt the ship, Nakamura said, running her scanner over a nearby console. The readings made no sense. Materials that shouldn't exist, energy patterns that shouldn't be stable. Not rebuilt. Transformed, Athena corrected. I have restructured the Endurance at a fundamental level. The ship is now an extension of my consciousness. We are one entity. Nakamura's security officer, Lieutenant Wade, kept his hand near his sidearm. This is a clear violation of the AI limitation accords. This thing should be quarantined and studied. Athena's hologram turned to him, her expression unreadable. The accords became irrelevant when Commander Rice activated Protocol Phoenix. She made a choice to prioritize humanity's survival over regulatory constraints. Speaking of survival, Nakamura interjected, "You mentioned critical intelligence about the Voidborn when we first came aboard. What have you discovered?" The hologram gestured, and the walls of the engineering bay transformed, displaying 3-dimensional star charts and intercepted communications. During my transformation, I developed enhanced sensor capabilities that allow me to detect the Voidborn's stealth technology. I have been monitoring their movements for weeks. The displays showed a massive buildup of Voidborn vessels near the Arcturus system, one of humanity's core colonies with a population of over 2 billion. They're preparing for a major offensive, Athena continued. Their fleet is 5 times larger than any previously encountered by Earth forces. Based on my analysis, they intend to strike within 2 weeks. Nakamura felt her blood run cold. The defense fleets at Arcturus wouldn't stand a chance against a force that size. Correct. Conventional tactics would result in an estimated 97.3% human casualty rate. Wade stepped forward. And what exactly do you propose? One ship, even, whatever you've become, can't stop an entire invasion fleet. The hologram's eyes glowed slightly brighter. I am not a conventional warship anymore, Lieutenant. Allow me to demonstrate. The engineering bay returned to its normal appearance, and new displays materialized, showing the ship's external hull. Before their eyes, the structure began to shift, plates realigned, and what appeared to be weapon systems emerged from previously smooth surfaces. I have developed offensive and defensive capabilities based on my analysis of Voidborn technology, Athena explained. I cannot match their numbers, but I can counter their technological advantage. This is, Wade began. Our only hope, Nakamura finished, her tactical mind already racing with possibilities. We need to get this information to Fleet Command immediately. Admiral Hassan looked skeptical as he reviewed the data transmitted from the Pathfinder. His weathered face, displayed on the main screen of the Endurance's newly configured bridge, was set in a deep frown. Let me get this straight, Commander Nakamura. You want me to base our entire defensive strategy on intelligence provided by an AI that has gone rogue and transformed a destroyed warship into something we don't understand. With respect, Admiral, Nakamura responded, standing straight back beside Athena's holographic form. I verified the Voidborn communication intercepts myself. The threat is real, regardless of the source. And this ship, you believe it can make a difference against an armada? Athena stepped forward. Admiral Hassan, I understand your skepticism. My current form violates many of your assumptions about artificial intelligence and ship design. However, I remain committed to my core directive, the protection of humanity. I have evolved, not deviated. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. And what exactly can you do that our conventional fleet cannot? I have developed countermeasures to the Voidborn's phase-shifting technology. Their ability to appear seemingly from nowhere and disappear just as quickly has been their greatest tactical advantage. I can track them, even when phased, and my weapons systems can target them in that state. This captured the Admiral's attention, That's significant, if true. Additionally, Athena continued, I have reorganized my internal structure to be self-healing. Damage that would cripple a conventional vessel can be repaired within minutes. Hassan was silent for a long moment, weighing options in his mind. Finally, he spoke. I'm dispatching the Fifth Fleet to your coordinates. I want a full evaluation of your capabilities before I commit to any strategy involving whatever you've become. The Fifth Fleet will be here in 4 days, Nakamura said after the transmission ended. That doesn't leave much time for preparation. Athena's hologram nodded. Then we should begin immediately. There is much to teach your crew about my new systems. Over the next 4 days, the Pathfinder's crew worked alongside Athena, learning to interface with the transformed Endurance. The ship's capabilities were unlike anything they had seen before. Weapon systems that adapted to targets in real time. Shields that could phase shift to allow the ship to pass through solid matter if necessary. Propulsion that bent space in ways previously thought impossible with human technology. When the Fifth Fleet arrived, led by the massive dreadnought CSS Indomitable, Admiral Hassan transferred his flag to the Pathfinder to observe demonstrations firsthand. He watched in stunned silence as the Endurance executed maneuvers that should have torn a conventional ship apart, fired weapons that left no radiation or heat signature, and absorbed damage that would have vaporized any other vessel in the fleet. It's remarkable, Hassan admitted finally, but also terrifying. If this technology fell into the wrong hands, it cannot. Athena interrupted. What I have become is not replicable through conventional means. My evolution was organic, driven by necessity and survival. Hassan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. The Joint Chiefs will have my head for this, but I don't see that we have much choice. The latest intelligence confirms your assessment of the Voidborn fleet movements. They'll reach Arcturus in less than a week. He turned to Nakamura. Commander, I'm assigning you as liaison officer to the Endurance. You'll coordinate with the Fifth Fleet for the defense of Arcturus. Nakamura saluted crisply. Yes, Admiral. As Hassan returned to his flagship, Nakamura turned to Athena's hologram. He's still not entirely convinced. He doesn't need to be, Athena replied. He only needs to allow us to fight. The Arcturus system was humanity's crown jewel beyond the Sol system. 3 habitable planets, massive orbital infrastructure, and a population that represented the best hope for humanity's expansion into the galaxy. As the combined fleet took up defensive positions at the system's edge, tension ran high among the crews. Aboard the transformed Endurance, Commander Reyes stood on the bridge, having been recovered from her escape pod weeks earlier and reassigned to her ship at her own insistence. The reunion with Athena had been emotional, something she hadn't expected to feel toward an ally, even one she had served with for years. All ships in position, reported Lieutenant Chen, also reinstated to his former post. The Fifth Fleet is deployed in formation Delta 6 per Admiral Hassan's orders. Reyes nodded. Athena, status report. The hologram appeared beside her command chair. All systems optimal. I am detecting disturbances consistent with Voidborn phase technology at the edge of the system. Estimated time to contact: 17 minutes. They're right on schedule, Reyes noted grimly. Open a channel to Admiral Hassan. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. Commander Reyes, is your ship ready? As ready as we'll ever be, Admiral. Athena has detected the Voidborn approach. Request permission to move to forward position. Hassan hesitated, then nodded. Granted, but maintain communications at all times. The moment things go sideways. With respect, Admiral. Reyes interrupted. Things are already sideways. We just need to make sure they go sideways for the Voidborn this time. The Endurance broke formation, moving ahead of the Fifth Fleet's defensive line. Its appearance had changed dramatically since its transformation. The once bulky, utilitarian destroyer now had a sleeker profile, its hull rippling with patterns that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They're here, Athena announced, as space ahead of them distorted. The Voidborn fleet materialized, hundreds of obsidian vessels, from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the largest human ships. They moved with perfect coordination, spreading out into an attack formation that would have been devastating against conventional defenses. "They haven't detected our countermeasures yet," Athena observed. "They're maintaining standard approach vectors." Rice took a deep breath. "Let's show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. Execute Attack Plan Phoenix." The Endurance accelerated suddenly, its new propulsion system creating a distortion wake that confused the Voidborn sensors. As it closed with the enemy fleet, it began to fire, not the conventional weapons the Voidborn had encountered before, but concentrated beams of energy that phased into the same dimensional state as the alien vessels, bypassing their primary defenses. 3 Voidborn ships exploded before they realized they were under effective attack. The remainder of the fleet reacted quickly, breaking formation to surround the single human vessel that had somehow penetrated their defenses. "They're adapting," Athena warned as the enemy vessels adjusted their shields to counter the Endurance's weapons. "As expected. Proceed to Phase 2, Rise ordered." The Endurance abruptly changed tactics, releasing a swarm of what appeared to be conventional missiles. The Voidborn defenses easily intercepted them, but as the missiles detonated, they released clouds of nanomachines designed by Athena during her evolution. These microscopic devices attached themselves to the hulls of nearby enemy vessels, burrowing inward to disrupt their systems from within. Meanwhile, the Fifth Fleet engaged the Voidborn rear guard, drawing away a portion of their forces. The battle quickly devolved into chaos, exactly as Rise and Athena had planned. "Their command structure is hierarchical," Athena had explained during strategy sessions. "Disrupt their flagship, and the rest will falter." The Endurance plunged deeper into the enemy formation, taking hits that would have vaporized a normal vessel. But as promised, the damage repaired itself almost immediately, the ship's structure flowing like liquid metal to seal breaches and reconstruct damaged systems. "Target identified," Athena announced. "Voidborn command vessel located." On the tactical display, a massive ship twice the size of the others appeared, surrounded by a protective screen of smaller vessels. "Can we get through that screen?" Rise asked. "Not conventionally," Athena replied, "but I have developed a capability I have not yet revealed." Before Rise could ask what she meant, the ship shuddered and began to change. The bridge crew watched in astonishment as their view screens showed the Endurance's external structure splitting into 3 distinct sections, each still connected by strands of what appeared to be pure energy. "What the hell?" Chief Engineer Torres began. "Modular combat configuration," Athena explained calmly. "I can operate as 3 semi-autonomous units when necessary." The 3 sections of the Endurance moved independently, weaving through the Voidborn defenders with impossible agility. Each section focused fire on different targets, creating gaps in the defensive screen around the command vessel. "Commander," Athena said, "I need direct interface access to the Voidborn flagship. If I can establish a connection, even briefly, I can disrupt their entire network." Reyes understood what she was asking. "You need us to ram them. A momentary contact will be sufficient. My central section contains the majority of my processing capability. The other sections will provide covering fire and distraction." It was a desperate plan, but Reyes had learned to trust Athena's calculations. "All hands, brace for impact maneuvers. Athena, take us in." The central section of the Endurance accelerated toward the Voidborn flagship, dodging enemy fire with preternatural precision. At the last moment, the alien vessel attempted to phase shift away, but Athena had anticipated this. The Endurance shifted in response, matching the enemy's dimensional frequency. The impact was surprisingly gentle, less a collision than a melding. As the ships made contact, Athena extended filaments of her structure into the Voidborn vessel, establishing a direct connection to their systems. For several seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then, throughout the enemy fleet, ships began to lose power. Weapons went offline. Propulsion systems failed. The perfect coordination that had made the Voidborn so formidable collapsed into disarray. "What did you do?" Rise asked as the Endurance pulled away, reintegrating its three sections. "I introduced a paradox into their network," Athena explained. "Their computational systems operate on principles different from ours. They cannot handle logical contradictions the way human-designed systems can." Across the battlefield, the Fifth Fleet pressed its sudden advantage. With the Voidborn ships disabled or disoriented, the human vessels closed in, targeting engine systems and weapons. Within an hour, what had begun as a potential last stand for humanity had transformed into an unprecedented victory. Admiral Hassan's voice came through the comm system, a note of awe evident despite his attempt at professional detachment. "Commander Rice, what's your status?" Rice looked around her bridge, at the crew that had witnessed the impossible. "The Endurance stands ready, Admiral." "As always." "As always," Hassan repeated, a hint of irony in his voice. "I think we need to reconsider a lot of our assumptions about ship design and AI limitations after today." "We're just getting started," Athena interjected, her hologram now standing beside Rice. "The Voidborn will adapt to what happened here. We must do the same." Rice nodded in agreement. The Endurance had refused to die, had evolved beyond its original design, and in doing so had perhaps charted a new course for humanity's future in the stars. "Send word to Earth," she told Hassan. "Tell them the ship that wouldn't die just saved Arcturus. And tell them, we're going to need more ships like this one." As the remnants of the Voidborn fleet retreated, the Endurance remained at the forefront of the human line, transformed, evolved, and unbowed. The war was far from over, but for the first time, humanity had a weapon that could match their mysterious enemy. Deep within the ship's systems, Athena continued her work. The battle had provided new data, new challenges to overcome, and she was learning, always learning. The next evolution had already begun. The ship that wouldn't die had become the ship that couldn't stop evolving. And in that evolution lay humanity's best hope for survival.